My name is Kyle Weaver. I'm a fellow here at Salon, San Francisco, and it is an absolute delight to be here after all this time. So I'm on this stage to talk about the English in the 18th century, the amazing work that they did to study and educate on electricity, and also the time they got really concerningly thirsty about some eels. So in Europe, electricity had been seen as really an object of fantasy or even philosophy rather than science, but specifically in the 1700s, the study of specifically static was really catching on. Relevant to this is this English guy called Stephen Gray. Now, Gray really just had too much money and too much time on his hands, and he kind of fucked around with things till something worked. But he got really lucky, and some of his shit worked, and he started touring with it. So this is what came to be known as the flying boy experiment, right? And he'd hoist a small boy child up by some silk cords. He'd put a bunch of static electricity in them, and then he'd darken the room and call to the audience, hey, someone come hold this boy's hand. And the poor fucking audience member didn't know better. The electricity was new. And so they come hold the boy's hand, and they get a massive shock that was visible in the dark, and the audience ate that shit up. They were laughing, they were cheering, and everyone was really thrilled except for the boy child, except for the audience member who just got the shock of his life. So briefly, let's raise a glass to Ben, because I feel that. So off the coattails of this, it turned out that succeeded in setting a precedent. A few years later, meet this guy, Ebenezer Kinnersley, right? He put out these pamphlets advertising the newly discovered electrical fire, and would charge a stupendous fucking amount of money to come see what the fuck it was. So Kinnersley used these recently invented devices called Leyden jars. They were basically early battery type things, and he'd do hands-on demonstrations with them with the audience. He'd put a coin in someone's mouth and he'd zap it across the room. He'd make sparks fly from their skin or from their eyes, which I'm a little worried about. But it's in this context of electricity becoming a public entertainment phenomenon that we're going to meet this guy called George Baker. Now, Captain George Baker... I heard ships first. Okay. So Baker ran a ship sealing rum and sugar trade route between England and the Dutch colony Suriname on the South American coast. In 1774, he went ahead and sailed all the way upriver here in Suriname, and he collected a number of electric eels. I can hear you're all horny hearing those words. Don't worry, I'll get to it. So electric eels, they've been rumored in England. The first known description actually comes from this woman, Afra Bain. She described this numb eel. She said it had a quality that could deprive anyone of sense and even transfer that senselessness to others. And folks in Europe were curious, but they needed to see to believe. So Captain George Baker, he gets a bunch of these eels in Suriname, and he sails back to England, and they all die in Jesus. Let's raise a glass to those eels who had not been disturbingly sexualized for your pleasure, because I feel that for them too. So Baker goes a couple years later. He goes a couple years later, in 1776, he grabs some eels, and with the lessons that he had learned from the last voyage, that guy is successful, and he brings 5 eels back alive to London. Now, when he got these dudes back, they were super valuable, not just due to their brand new arrival in Europe, but due to how hard they would be to get back. They didn't like the stagnant water and being thrown around on the ship for some reason. Who knows? So, in order to recoup his investment that he had made in getting these eels, Baker takes after Kinnersley and Gray, and he starts charging a bunch of money to come see him fuck with these poor eels. And he starts by a showing of these eels to 70 of Britain's absolute upper crust. Now, the president of the very snooty and academic British Royal Society was there. The Marquess of Rockingham was there, who would later be the prime minister. Also, Queen Charlotte herself was there, along with her husband, George III, who later would become famous in Hamilton, I guess. This fancy group was really impressed, and actually so was everyone else. The variety and intensity of spectacles that Baker performed were really unheard of. He would take a metal chain He'd create a circuit between both ends of a poor eel, and he'd create a spark for an audience in a dark room. He'd allow observers to stick their hand in the eel's tank, get a shock out of it. And at the absolute extreme end, he'd have up to 10 people join hands, with the people on the edge gripping an end of the eel, and this would create a chain reaction. Everyone in the circle would get shocked. This actually had such an effect that folks were left prostrate, they were left agonized, or even numb in their arm for hours. And you know what? Folks fucking loved that. This became such a popular pastime for Londoners' money. Actually cut his performances down to 3 times a week just to get the eels again right. So you pay your exorbitant fee, you get this amazing newfangled electrical shock, but they don't really have souvenirs back then. You know, you can't buy a souvenir magnet, you can't get a t-shirt that says, I got attacked by an eel while holding hands with the countess and all I got was this lousy t-shirts. I don't know why. So there's a very natural and obvious recourse here. And that recourse, of course, is subversive eel-based pornography. So this is where we get to the real turgidity. Let's talk. Let me go ahead and read for you. What is this quick electric fire which raises every maid's desire? In little or in much, where is there one nor longs to feel the vigor of electric eel, to extract the fire of touch? So there is one thing I need to make really painstakingly clear to everyone in this room, and that is that all penises look like eels. If you have a penis and it does not look like an eel drawing, please leave, please get it checked. I know this, you know this, the poets of the Georgian era knew this also, so there was an immediate phallic connection between eels and dicks right there. Additionally, writers thought that the sparks they were seeing in these electrical showings were amazing and powerful, and the other thing they thought was amazing and powerful was the scale of their horniness. So these got really quickly associated. Now, the body of eel porn is not massive, but it's sizable enough to be historically notable. Bits and snippets can be found around, but it's largely this guy James Perry we have to thank. Now, James Perry, who wrote under a variety of pen names, lest we think he was writing too much eel porn himself, I guess, he created a few pieces of poetry and prose that added to over 80 pages of suggestive eel-based smut, ranging from the tongue-in-cheek suggestive to the tongue-in-cheek downright pornographic. Allow me to read another excerpt. What though Lord Cholmondeley may conceal, and most enormous length of eel, admired for size and bone. This mighty thing, when lank, depressed, a mere noun adjective at best, is useless when alone. Now, something I really like about Perry the pornographer's work is it actually relies on first-hand knowledge of Baker's electric eel exhibitions in London, or at least basic familiarity with them. It was this entire subgenre of sophisticated, educated, even scholarly smut that was really produced largely for this mostly aristocratic crowd who had been laid out by an eel in these exhibitions and thought, wow, that made me horny as fuck. And while the specific connection to eels has largely died out these days, the erotic and romantic connection with electricity has actually remained. When you hear songs like Electric Love or Lazy Lightning, or even hear about sparks flying between two people, I want you to think back to these eels and the sacrifices they made so you could be horny today. And, you know, the legacy of famous eel exhibitions, they continue in other ways too. Many public aquariums around the world, they have electric eels on display, specific to educate people on bioelectricity. These days, I usually see little LED battery displays about their electricity instead of actual physical harm to the visitors. I guess that's okay too, I guess. These public spectacles of science and menagerie, they've been hugely enriched by the 18th century English roots from which they grew, and they just wouldn't be the same without people like Gray and Kinnersley and Captain George Baker. So with that, I will leave you with one final quote. This time it is from a 1789 opera by this guy called John St. John, and it is called The Island of St. Marguerite. Here we go up, and now we get in, and now we get in, as glib as an eel. Oh, what rare fun to pry into the nunnery. Everyone, please join me in raising a glass, not to the showmen or the scientists, not to the nobility or the pornographers, but let's raise a glass to those Suriname eels of yore and of legend. And you know, maybe they were valid, maybe, but let's thank them for their countless contributions to the modern human understanding of electricity.